Elumba. I am from the online media elumba.com. I think you know us very well, sir.
Yes, I do, Tim. Welcome.
All right,
Good morning.
Sir, it's finally a pleasure meeting you in person to iron a few things out and set some matters straight. But before we move on, sir, can we get to meet you, sir?
Well, my name is Oseloka H. Obaze. I'm a political scientist by training, a diplomat by profession, and a technocrat. I'm involved in policy and governance issues. My last position was the secretary to the Anambra state government. Since I left office 20 months ago, this is my office. I do consulting on governance, policy, and management issues. I'm from Anambra State.
Thank you, sir. Good work. All right, we can now move straight to the matters of the day. First and foremost, we know you are a governorship aspirant under the All Progressive Grand Alliance Act for the upcoming 2017 governorship elections, sir. To start with, do you think there is a level playing ground for all participants, whether it is ABGA or non-ABGA?
Well, thank you, Tim. I think I need to make some clarification. I'm not an ABGA aspirant. I used to be in ABGA. I'm no longer there. I've since moved on. I will be contesting the elections, hopefully, God willing, on a PDP platform.
Okay.
As to your questions, I believe a level playing field exists, and it should exist because we are in a democracy. I also know that all the parties and all the contestants do not have the same capacity, but nevertheless, because we're in a democracy, people should be able to participate fully in an unfettered way. But there are some risks involved. If those who control the levers of government and governance seek to tweak the political process in such a way that it favors particular candidates. What do I mean by that? In Anambra recently, there was the issue of huge sums of money that aspirants are supposed to pay to be able to advertise. That does not assist the process. If you're an aspirant, everybody should have equal access to the media. Of course, you have to pay, but to impose an arbitrary fee that makes it impossible for people who are campaigning to post their posters and have their billboards, I think is meant to deter people, some people, or discourage. And it actually is constitutional because it abridges the freedom of free speech. But that's the way it is. But naturally, there ought to be a playing field, and people who are contesting should be able to contest.
That having been said, that reminds you, talk about endorsement and associated stuff. A few days ago, I read one of your statements where you lamented that having been said, endorsement that reminds me, particular candidate by talk about Anambra North People's Association, and it didn't seem to go down well with you, sir. Why is that so? Did you consider the move appalling or undemocratic?
Well, I'm aware that some people have said the endorsement was illegal. I don't think I ever said that. I said that it was undemocratic. I said that it was non-inclusive, and I said it was myopic. And we're basically talking about the Anambra Anambra North People's Association Assembly that, after consultation, decided that they would endorse only one candidate from the North. The reality is that we collectively fought to bring the governorship to the North. That was in 2013. There was a host of us. There were about 13 of us. At the end, the incumbent governor became the beneficiary. judiciary. So I assume that due process and fairness, equity, would allow a process that you allow the same set of candidates to indicate interest and to contest, and by the time you get to the primaries of the respective parties, let those who will emerge, whoever is the best to emerge. By endorsing one candidate, you foreclose on the options, even better options that exist for Anambra North. And I don't think the endorsement or the sample scientifically was representative. There are issues here that make people consider the government of the day as not to their best option in terms of governance. People are hungry, there's recession. Some of the aspect of governance that used to be in place, education, social welfare system, are not being implemented fully. So these are basically the challenges that we face. And for a group of hand-picked people representing an association to come out and say, we've endorsed one candidate, the question is, what is the scientific process? Did they conduct a poll? Did they go to the marketplaces to ask the people? Did they go on the road? I know that the committee that handled the endorsement visited the 7 local governments in Anambra North. On the average, 100 people attended each of those meetings. So if you give the benefit of the doubt, for those 7 local governments, you had 1,000 people. Would you say that 1,000 people are representative of the views of an entire Anambra North? I think that contention is fallacious. It's wrong, and that's why I took an exception to the endorsement. But we're a democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. But like I said, in the fullness of time, they will find out if their decision is the right one or not.
Governor Willie Obiano has been in office for the past 3 years and been steering the affairs of the state. Well, sir, by your evaluation, will you give him a handshake, or how will you generally evaluate his stay in office for the past?
I take it that when you say, will I give him a handshake, you're talking about figuratively. Of course, I will shake him. He's my governor. I respect him. I respect the office that he occupies. In terms of assessment, let me say this. I served under P2B and I served under the incumbent governor, and I was there for 15 months. I left office some 20 months ago.
Yes, sir.
And from the day I left office, I recused myself from commenting on issues of politics in Anambra State and on governance issues until November 2016, when I granted an interview to some journalists and I said that Anambra State had been hijacked. Why did I say that? There were deviations from the trajectory that the government inherited from the P2B administration. There were focus issues that were no longer being followed in development, in finance, in infrastructure, in accountability, and other areas. And that is a challenge. Add to that the general malaise of our people being hungry, of the recession, and things like that. So you ask yourself, as a member of the attentive public, is Anambra where it is supposed to be, given the foundation that was laid? The answer is no. I know it does not sit well with certain loyalists of this government when you say that, but that is the truth. What is the fundamental challenge? Bad advisors lead to bad policies. That is what we're experiencing now. But let me say this, Anambra has progressively advanced since its creation. And I think in terms of development under ANIT, under P2B, we experienced the trust and the growth of development, where all the 177 communities were carried along simultaneously. That has changed. The approach now, despite the emphasis on the enablers and the pillars, is not as holistic as it used to be. And until you get to the grassroots, you won't understand that. But those of us who are technocrats, who have been in government, who understand how government functions, are consciously aware of that. The amount of money that has been expended in the last 3 years is nowhere commensurate to the development of the ground. And that is a fact. People need to look at that. And people have to ask what has happened. So, beyond subjectivity, you have to make a hard-headed analysis to say, yes, this is where we are on a scale of 1 to 10. But you also have to say, if things had gone right, if we are continuing on the trajectory, where are we supposed to be? Where we're supposed to be at 8 or 9, perhaps we're at 6 or 7. And somebody will say, well, it's incremental. In the first term, nobody does a lot of work, they do it in the second term. But you cannot defer development. What we have now is arrested development in the state. It's stagnant. But let me also say that the security architecture which will be put in place is stable. It has been improved on in different aspects. So we have security in the states because that's one of the top issues here. People feel more secure, no question about that. And it can't even be better than it is. So I have one vote and one person, one voice. But there are many people here who would have to speak to the challenges that we have in Anambra State, and if the next 4 years should continue in this stride, or if we should look for another option and strive for something better.
All right, sir. Thank you for that clarification. It has always been in people's mind that when we visit social network, for example, there has always been a lot of argument, those for and those against, that the government is, some will argue that it has done exceptionally well, and some will think that it's been disappointing. But I haven't heard it from a technocrat, an insider like you. I believe that will have laid to rest some of our assumptions and presumptions. So we move on, sir. Now, let us step up a bit to the federal level. Wow. In 2 months, the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari would have completed its 2 full years in office. Sir, please, what is your evaluation on the President Muhammadu Buhari-led federal government? How do you think we have fared economically and politically?
Well, I think any assessment of the Buhari administration, because he has 4 years, first year, second year, will not be conclusive, but we must evaluate what has happened so far.
Yes, sir.
First year and second year. The journey so far, the results are largely mixed. There's no clarity to say that they failed woefully, but there's also no clarity to say that they have succeeded as they promised with the change mantra. So basically, I think the administration had a false start. And I say that in quotes, false start, in the sense that they campaigned to bring change, they sold the change mantra to Nigerians, they lifted everybody's hope high, and when they took power in the first year, a large number of Nigerians were disappointed with the governance, with the policy, and with the direction of things. It will take a while for Nigerians to recover. What we know today is that Nigerians are hungry, we have high inflation, we're in a recession, and the country is largely polarized. But the government of the day is still in place, and like you said, the government will be 2 years in May 29th. Perhaps the best way to judge it is that the SBM intelligence, what they call the giraffe rice index, because everybody eats rice, at least giraffe rice, every family.
Yes, sir.
Has indicated that whereas when they took over, a pot of giraffe rice for a family of 4 used to cost under 3,000 to prepare. Today it costs 6,800. That is more than 100% rise. Now you understand why Nigerians are hungry. And why, you would ask, why do they use the giraffe rice? The reason why they use the giraffe rice is that we have rice that is produced in Nigeria, tomatoes are produced in Nigeria, every ingredient, so there's no dollar component to producing a pot of giraffe rice, and people have to eat. And that's the reality. In terms of policy and change, the Naira is a shadow of itself. From the promised 2 Naira to $1 to 519 Naira to $1. That speaks for itself. Unemployment is high. The campaign against corruption is ongoing, but the debate is also rife because people say to you, it is selective, it is not selective. I agree, it is subjective, but one has to make a distinction between fighting corruption and governance. It seems like almost the first 2 years, there's been little or no governance. That's why you hear people saying, we'll shuffle the cabinet, get more people involved in the economic aspect of the governance. The economy is in shambles. The debt of the country is growing. The states are unviable, most of them. That's why they had to take bailouts. And if you look at the overall mosaic of national economy and politics, I don't think Nigerians are where they're expected to be under this administration. Is there room for improvement and development? Possibly. Is there hope? We're all human. So we have hope on a daily basis. And that is the challenge of the day. But if, in summary, and I speak for myself and perhaps a lot of Nigerians, are Nigerians thrilled about where they have found themselves now? The answer is no. But they also realize that it's what they voted for. It is a choice they made. And that is the beauty of democracy. 2 years down, 2 years to go. In 2019, they will have to reflect fully whether they want to continue with this government at the federal level, at the center, or if they want to change. And that will be up to them, and that will depend on what happens between now and 2019. But the downside of our type of politics is that once we cross 29 May 2017, the campaign for 2019 would have started in earnest. So governance would have stopped fully. And that's the biggest challenge.